So let's get right into the video. For this skirt, we'll be needing, the first measurement we'll be needing is our waist measurement, and for this one I'll be using a waist of 28 divided by 4, which is 7 in 1 inch for that, and that is 8 inches. I'm just going to mark my 8 inches here. So these lines I have here, they are just my starting point lines. I just rule them out as a starting point so I'll know exactly where I'm starting my measurement from the waist to the hip measurement, which I measured was 8 inches. I'm just going to mark my 8 inches and draw a line around there. That's my hip line. I'm going to go ahead right now to draw my hip line out. So on this hip line, I'm going to take my hip measurement here, which is 9 inches. So I'm going to mark out my 9 inches, which is the hip measurement for this skirt we are working on. Right, so talking about hip, let me give you a quick tip that will give you perfect fit at all times. Let's get into the video. So for the hip, the first measurement you need to take is take the fullest part of the hip. Measure from your waist to the fullest part of the butt, that is the hip, and you take your measurement around that part, right? So the next thing you always see, you have all these people that have a bulgy kind of hip at the lower parts. They have this kind of like something like what is showing on the screen right now, those lower hips. What you want to do also is take from your waist to that part, assuming there's the bulginess in this mannequin we are working with. So from your waist, you also measure that part to get the exact length, then take the round measurement of that hip as well. So you are taking 2 round measurements. The first one is where the butt is, where the butt is fuller, that is your hip line or the first hip. The second measurement, measurement you should be taking is if the person has a bulgy hip, the lower hip, also take that measurement. So in total you'll be having 4 hip measurements, right? The length of from your waist to the length, the normal hip line, then from the waist to the lower hip line, also the round hip measurement where the butt is fuller, and the last part is the round hip measurement, the lower part of the where the butt is lower, where the bulge, where they have hip bulge. So it's okay to take all your measurements so you always have a perfect fit. So whoever you take your hip measurement with this method, you always have that perfect hip, perfect size. You don't need to be going through this dancing style of putting the tape round and you'll be going up and down. You don't need those. If you can take these 4 measurements with your hip, you always have the perfect fit around the hip. So I hope you find this helpful. So right now let's get back to our main video, implementing these things we just learned. So I hope you found that tip helpful. Let's get ahead with the video. So for this project, I'll be working with that bulgy part, the lower hip as well, so you understand it totally. So my measurement for the lower hip for this project is 9 inches. I'm just going to mark my 9 inches here and mark it the way I did with the normal hip line. Right, so fine, this is my upper hip and the lower hip. So let me just go ahead to label this: the waist, the upper hip, and the lower hip. Right, so now on this hip line, the normal hip, I had 9 inches, which is hip of 36, but for the lower hip I have 37 as the hip. So what I'm going to do is add half inch to the first 35. So I'm going to add half inch. The next thing, I want to extend the measurement from the hip line as well with that half inch I added there to make it even. So both the upper hip and the lower hip will have the same measurement at this point. So this way it will make the skirt fit very well on the person we are making this skirt for. It will be a perfect fit because it went through both the lower hip and the upper hip. Right, the next thing we want to do is take our full length skirt measurement and the extra allowance we need. So I just went ahead to mark 27 and I marked that out, and I also marked 1 inch for the seam allowance at the bottom, at the hem of the skirt. So now we are going to take from the hip to the skirt, to the end of the skirt. If you are making a straight skirt, like not a pencil skirt, you don't need anything. I'll just go ahead to measure what I have on the hip. I'm going to measure it at the down part of the skirt and join a straight line with a straight line. But because we are not making a normal straight skirt, we want to make this skirt a pencil skirt. I'm going to go in with 2 inches at the bottom, yes, at the skirt, at the hem of the skirt, and with the seam allowance there, I'm going to go in with 2 inches on both sides, and then I'll just use my curve ruler, to join the points together. If you are finding this video helpful, please subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss any tutorial I'll be bringing on this channel. So now we've gone ahead to mark our hip to the length of the skirt. These other lines will no longer be needed because now our skirt is a pencil skirt. If you wanted just a straight skirt, then you just leave it that way. But because we are going for a pencil skirt, we went in with 2 inches, and these other ones will not be needed. The next thing we want to do is go back to the upper part of this skirt so we can conclude with what we're doing. Now the next thing you want to do, take the half measurement of between the waist and the hip line, the first hip line. The half of the hip and the waist, you have 4 inches, right? So I'm just going to mark 4 inches at this point. This is half of it. Now we are going for a dart, so this is half of it. And the next thing you want to take, the best what I recommend when taking, knowing where your dart should start, is your bust measurement, your bust point measurement, that's bust pan measurement. So for this skirt or for this project is 4, so I went in, I marked my 4 inches at the waist and 4 inches, which is half between the waist and the hip. I hope you understand. Just look at what I'm doing, I'm sure you get it. So here I'm just going to mark a straight line to connect these 2 points together, right? So then the next thing I want to do is take out the 1 inch that I used for my dart. Remember in the beginning when we measured the skirt, when we measured the waist, it was 7 plus 1 inch dart. So the dart, we're going to take out the dart measurement here, which is 1 inch, and we're going to take it on the both sides, so half an inch on one side and half an inch on the other side, which will be total 1 inch. Right, so this is 1 inch. This is what we'll be folding in for our dart. So the next thing I want to do now is just connect the points to this dart line to have a straight line. Yes, just connect like so. I'm sure if you follow what I'm doing, you get it. It's quite easy, really. It's easy. Just follow the instructions, follow what you're seeing here, you get it. So now this is what we have, our skirt is ready. So one last thing before I forget. So to make your skirt sit perfectly on your waist, we are going to take in like 1/4 of an inch upwards. Here I'm just going to mark 1/4 of an inch just to make the skirt go up a little at the waist side to sit perfectly. So I'm just going to join it to the dart with a dotted line like so. Let me go ahead with my ruler as well to just give it a perfect line. So what basically is just to make the skirt sit well at your waist. That's why we are doing this, right? So now for the back, what I just did was to mark out the 2 hip lines, and yes, just mark out the lines. And here is my zip allowance, 2 inches for the zipper at the back of the skirt. So right ahead, what we're going to do now is to take out our dart again for the back. Take out our dart and just cut the skirt. So the only thing we are going to be doing for this back is just to take out the dart and cut the skirt. Mind you, in all these I've not added my seam allowance, so I'll add my seam allowance when I am cutting my main fabric, when I'm cutting this pattern piece on the main fabric. So for this pattern right now, there's no allowance, right? So I'm just tracing out the upper part of this skirt, which is the waist part of this skirt, on the back pattern as well, so I can have all my points well. So now I'm taking out the front pattern so we can concentrate on the back for this. So this is what I just went ahead to do. I mark out the lines. So I also took out the middle line for the back, which is 8 inches between the waist and the hip, 8 inches. But for the back, I'm not going to mark out, I'm not going to put my dart exactly on the 4 inches like we did at the front. I'm going to be coming up with half an inch. Yes, half an inch, so which is 3.5. My dart will be sitting on 3.5 at the back instead of 4 like it sits like I marked at the front. So I'm just going to go ahead to do exactly what I did at the back, which is, so I've gone ahead to mark out my lines, 3.5 inches for my dart at the back, but at the front I have 4 inches. So I'm still going to go ahead to take out my 1 inch, which is half on both sides for the back, and connect as we did at the front. So now this is how our patterns are looking, very neat and okay. So my next video, please watch out for it. We are going to be cutting out the skirt and sewing it with this pattern. So please subscribe and turn on your post notification or bell notification so you don't miss any of my videos. Thank you for watching. Bye.